welcome to another episode of our Wednesday webinar series, where today we have a very special guest, someone who lives the dream, that is the educational dream in cyber education. We're all in cyber education, aren't we, Dan Uttech? I'm so excited to have you here today. And we're going to talk about CyberEd and where it fits. As a technology instructor and an instructor of many other items, Dan has experience in this with the little grades and the big grades. So I will jump into his bio in just a minute, but let's get started with who we are. We are Grand Canyon University's Canyon Professional Development, and we have a quote to get started today. So Dan, if you could tell us this quote and why you chose it.
I'd love to kick us off with this quote. Too often we give children answers to remember instead of problems to solve. Roger Lewin, I live by this quote in my classroom, a lot of problem solving going on.
And what's so great about that is CyberEd has everything to do with problem solving. Let's see, I think all of us as teachers have had to solve one or two problems with technology, definitely as of recently, but all the time in the classroom. So today's goals and objectives for our webinar are to really think about cyber education in the classroom. So technology as a resource, as a tool, we use it that way, but we also can use it to transfer technology skills to other academic areas. And then finally, to recognize the dynamic nature of cyber education and why we as individuals need more training or professional development in this area. I'm going to talk about Gen Cyber particularly, which is our teacher camp, summer camp for to teach cybersecurity and why that might matter, because Dan Uttech has gone through that camp and we're excited to hear about that. So Dan, to get started, if you would just share with us, I love this mission statement. Tell us a little bit about this and who you are and why you teach cyber education in all of your classes, not just technology.
Right. Well, my name is Dan Uttech. I'm at 91st Psalm Christian School. I am the IT support person as well as the technology instructor. And it's my third year here now, and I really took a couple years to fine tune and get this mission statement down, and we really dive into using technology in meaningful ways to learn, create, problem solve, and serve others. It covers so much that a student can come in if they have a project in another classroom. And I really want them to be engaged in enhancing their knowledge in all aspects, math, history, science. I want them to learn how to use technology as a tool.
Okay, so you say technology as a tool, but let's be honest, our students are all about TikTok, YouTube. They oftentimes are passive users of technology. Not only does that freak me out as a classroom teacher, because I want them to be learning and not passively, brain dead as they're looking at something, but I also am concerned now about the cybersecurity element of that. So can you tell us how you teach? What's tech versus tech? How do you do it in your classroom?
Definitely. Well, it's all about relationships and just kind of offering up right away. You're like, well, I have a PS4 at home too, guys. I scroll on my phone at home too, guys. And the keyword at home, and really trying to hone in and making that relationship and making that connection with them, because games are kind of like your hook. And you start talking about games, you got them hooked. Then you can kind of slide them into now, hey, this is an actual tool. You can use it for learning, creating, problem solving, and diving into that security element too, with passwords, what they're sharing online, and all of that information as well.
Now, do you also teach HTML, Dan, in your classes and your technology classes to give kids an opportunity to look at what the code behind the websites looks like?
Definitely. I use Codeorg a lot to teach HTML, to do some coding with the students. And the students actually, the other day, they were looking at one of these weird websites where if you take the cursor and you point at it, it'll click on something and the picture will show up and the person is pointing at it. It actually turned out to be a great teaching tool, because then I said, okay, guys, click at the same point at the and the picture was a person pointing at the same point. And we were just doing an HTML lesson on XY values. And I said, oh, how do you think that person made that website? Now, the website was a goofy website just for fun, but it got to show them the in-depth analysis of it. And they were like, oh, they were kind of like, didn't want to talk about it because they were like, oh, we learned something.
And they're solving problems. So as a former computer science teacher myself, I have to say, I love this Code.org concept of teaching coding at the younger grade levels and even at the older grade levels, but you can use it all throughout K-12, I think. This concept of having a strategy for approaching problems that can help develop new insights and come up with better solutions, because ultimately that's what websites are all about. The UX, UI, user interface, user exchange, those jobs are going like hotcakes right now. $70,000 a year a student can get just for designing a website. It's fascinating to me. But as a part of it, they're defining what the problem is. They're preparing to solve it. They're trying it out. Like, does it work? And then they reflect upon it, and that circle goes right around. That is definitely a part of our love for the engineering design process, but absolutely happens in computer science as well. So I'd love for you to talk about computational thinking. And this is something that as a technology teacher, you just explained that you teach it, but how do you infuse maybe even some cybersecurity inside of computational thinking? In other words, if I'm a third grade teacher, why do I care?
Right, definitely. Um, a lot of it is that mindset. It's teaching from entertainment to using it as a tool. That growth mindset. Why am I going to go through this certain number of steps to get to somewhere? And I've shown students kind of like you said, $70,000, $100,000. I've shown students that, but students will even say like, I know I'm not going into this. And so I really try to hone in on that computational thinking of next steps and how do you use this in another area. I, even though I'm a technology teacher now, I have taught in the classroom, and I have faced high stakes testing, and particularly that problem where it says, which one of these is it not, right? And that trips up kids because they're flying through the test and they're not paying attention. And so computational thinking is really looking at the specifics, the details. Oh, I made like in HTML or in coding, if you make one error, one small uppercase letter error, your program's not going to work. Just like on a high stakes test that maybe a third grader, fourth grader, anybody is taking, they're really looking at those details, there's specifics. And so diving into those is
So they're
really
having
great.
to break it down with decomposition. And I love what you said about growth mindset and how the strategy of decomposition, which is one of these pieces of computational thinking and mathematical thinking, is really all about analyzing the problem, breaking it down into smaller chunks. So another part of computational thinking is pattern recognition. Do you see in cybersecurity or coding where your students are practicing pattern recognition?
Definitely in coding with our loops. I've had students kind of have this huge long line of code, and I say, well, wait a second, guys. Do you notice a pattern? What could you put in that loop? What could you put in that repeat loop? In cybersecurity, some very similar. We did a really fun activity, and I know we'll talk about this later. The capture the flag, but that you were constantly looking for patterns. If I do this, what happens next? As an IT person at my school, I'm constantly looking for patterns of what works, right?
Right,
This is working, this system is working, and this system is not working. How
right.
is this working? Where is the pattern and where does it stop? And then, oh, now let me repeat that. And so very similar in what I'm doing. And I've found that I've started to share some of my IT problems with my students, and they're really grasping into it because they know, oh, the Wi-Fi is not working. Oh, my Chromebook's not working. But when I share that with them and I share my troubles or I share the system that I'm going through, it brings them on board too. It gives them some ownership. Oh, I actually know what's going on now. But it's teaching them those looking for patterns too.
Well, so not just pattern like recognition, but also abstraction. So I love this. We have the magnifying glass as if we're seeking clues. So that to me really also lends itself to to cybersecurity and how that transfers over to, I don't know, math, English, creative writing. How do you teach pattern abstraction and
I,
just ignoring those some details and looking at others, just like what you said, it's your Chromebook's not working. What are the patterns that we're looking for or not? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I just love how that tapped into children's natural creativity, right? We have escape rooms, we have mystery novels, we have like kids are just i- i- inherently inclined to ask why. Yes, the little ones are really good at it. Why? And the great part about being at a K-12 school is I was in a kindergarten room this morning, and one of the teachers was trying to talk about twins, the concept of twins, to her 4-year-olds. And they were like, well, can there be three? Can there be four? Can there be 10? And she's like, oh my goodness. And it was just that great inquisitive mind, just finding out, wow, if there's two, maybe there could be three and four and five. And so it really is diving into that creativity of a student, especially in a different subject too, math, science, history. Why did this happen, right? Why did this historical event happen? What were the things that led up to this historical event?
That is fascinating. And I think what you just said is creativity. So pattern abstraction, AKA that CSI or mystery novel, that desire to ask why and to solve the problem really is helping in pattern abstraction. And finally, algorithm design. We hear all kinds of times about algorithms. Oh, that's the algorithm and they know what you want. And so now they're fishing for your interests, and so they send you certain things. And so we talk about that. And I love that concept with cybersecurity, thinking, okay, who has my data and my information? Well, someone who has created an algorithm. But at the end of the day, making instructions so simple that even a computer can understand, it's a human behind the computer thinking about psychology and creating those algorithms. Do you see places where you teach algorithm design for your students?
Definitely. And if you've seen the new Space Jam, the evil villain is Al G, after patterned after algae rhythm, algae
Algorithm. I love
algorithm.
you. I love that, Dan.
And you gotta watch that, gotta check that out. But algorithm design definitely like what I had an experience. I've had experience in this peanut butter and jelly sandwich too with kindergartners and first graders, and having the kindergartners say, "Okay, teach me. You be the teacher," and they love that, right? Students love being the teacher and saying, "Okay, tell me how to set this up. Hey, put the peanut butter on the bread." Okay, and then you obviously take the peanut butter and you just plop it on the bread. Any kindergarten teacher, first grade teachers watching this, you've done that before and you've known that. Um, with computer science and with cybersecurity, um, exactly to that point of having your information out there, and kind of teaching students, like, what do you want out there? Do you want, as soon as you search for something, do you want your social media feed flowing with advertisements after that, and kind of teaching that methodology and how marketers do that and why marketers do it and why it's allowed. And then, but then also saying, hey, what do you want to use DuckDuckGo as a browser? Do you want to use Brave as a browser? And just kind of like dripping in those little suggestions. And I know Professor Joe Erbs at GCU teaches that really well. And that was one thing that I took away from Gen Cyber too.
That is so cool. So even at the younger grades, you're really teaching these four main components of computational thinking. And we put together just a few ideas and perhaps, some things that you have also used in class, but, using an algorithm to find the best route between two places based on traffic and other factors like construction or roadblocks, kind of like how Waze works or Google Maps, right? And then you having students use that computational thinking when deciding on planning an activity based on weather predictions on an app. Something along those lines could be really helpful in the classroom. Following a recipe to bake a cake as an example of an algorithm, right? Just like you were talking about the peanut butter and jelly. And then planning a budget that involves pattern recognition and decomposition when determining spending habits. Oh my gosh, that might be really good for some of those high school students that are trying to hold on to their cash, right? I just really would love for you to talk to us a little bit about, you said kids are scrolly, and I love how you say that. Can you expand a little bit about that and tell us how you teach social emotional learning at the same time you teach cyber education?
Oh, definitely. And anybody watching this, if you give a kid a direction to go to a website, all of a sudden they're down at the bottom of the website. And you're like, whoa, wait, like, what, why, where are you? They're like, I'm looking. Half the time, I'm like, what are you looking for? And I start thinking maybe just pictures, right? Maybe just something to flashy to catch their attention. And they're scrolling so fast. And one of the things I took away from Gen Cyber too was that it has shifted now from the older generation being uh, more susceptible to hacks and clickbait. The younger generation is now, because they just don't read and they're not reading the email, and the email is a phishing email. And so seeing this and monitoring this in my classroom, it's really just kind of that, whoa, slow down, take a breath. And those are those mindful things too that in a classroom they can use anywhere. In a history class, before a test, before an exam, when they're stressed out, slow down, read the directions. And I sound like my dad now. Um, read the directions. But it is so true. And it does teach them things like in the future in life, where how do I fix my car? How do I fix my windshield wipers? Could I do this myself instead of taking it into the shop, save some money, and just read what my car manual says? So really just slowing down, taking their time, and taking it one step at a time.
I really appreciate what you say there. And you said clickbait and you said hacks and all of these words that to me are very Gen cybersecurity, but yet you're teaching self-management, responsible decision making. Hey, slow down. And I know it's so hard for kids to slow down because they have so much coming at them all at once. And that's why they're so scrolly. And I don't think that the answer is taking their devices away from them, because we live with devices. And so I don't know that that's the answer. And so I really appreciate that that wasn't your answer. So we talk a lot about lifelong learning as educators, but I think a lot of teachers would say, gosh, Dan, you teach, third grade or fifth grade. Granted, you do teach the technology courses, but I know you've taught other courses as well. Why Gen Cyber? What caught your eye about this program that, I don't know anything about cybersecurity. Why should I go to that as a fourth grade teacher, as an eighth grade teacher, as a 10th grade teacher?
Right, definitely. I had some internal bias going to it as a technology teacher. I'm like, what can I use in my classroom? But I'm always constantly telling the students to have a growth mindset and to hearken back to their days, especially teaching seventh, eighth, and ninth. I want them to hearken back to those days where they constantly asked why, and rediscover that sense of wonder. And so if I'm constantly telling them to do that, then I feel I need to do that as well. And so it is something I can talk to them in class. Hey guys, this summer at GCU. Hey guys, this summer at Gen Cyber, and just always saying that, and kids pick up the things that maybe you're not necessarily teaching, but those little things that I say, hey guys, last summer, and they'll pick that up instead of maybe the lesson, which that's another story. That's another whole
Another
webinar. But I really have this deep desire for lifelong learning because I want them to be lifelong learners too.
And so if you had to say one aha takeaway that you got from Gen Cyber, what would it be?
Can I say two?
Oh, please.
If I have enough time. The first one definitely was kind of that personal uh, uh, scrub of my technology. Even as a technology teacher, I'm hearing all these things about, like, go home and check your browser, go home and check your passwords. And I'm like, oh man. So I went home, I kind of personal digital hygiene. And that was really interesting for technology teachers or any teachers. Um,
Or any
and
human being, I think.
right.
Like that's, yeah. Okay. So learn how to like check your own yard before you go look in someone else's backyard. That's awesome. Okay.
Definitely. The
Number
second
two.
one was the kind of just that like fun playfulness particularly of this particular thing that we did all week. We ended up doing it all week long at Gen Cyber. It was introduced to us as Capture the Flag, and it is a cybersecurity uh, activity that cybersecurity students do. But just as a teacher and as a learner, and as you know, we're all kind of competitive. We all have different ranges of competition in us. It was really cool to dive through this activity, learn new things, and then have those aha moments ourselves, right? We desire students to have those, and then as we're like learning how to look at data and information and talking with fellow teachers, it was just a fun activity, and it was a blast to have fun learning.
Okay, so a lot of people who are watching this have no idea what capture the flag is. Could you just tell us a little bit about, like, okay, this is cool, and how does it have relevance as a regular teacher?
Definitely. Now it's kind of like your playground capture the flag, right? Where you had two teams, and one team had to run up to the other side of the field, grab the other team's flag, and then run back to their base. In a digital capture the flag, you applying some of your cybersecurity concepts that you learned throughout the week at Gen Cyber, and opening up files and looking at different files. You're going through that process, that step-by-step process, reading the directions, looking at talking to other people. Hey, what did you see here? What did you see here? Looking for patterns, and kind of applying all of those problem solving skills that we want our students to use in math, in history, in science. So it's kind of just a fun problem solving activity, but you're getting to do it on a machine, and learning some advanced things. You walk away, and there were a bunch of teachers in my cybersecurity class that weren't technology teachers. One worked on the reservation, one worked at a correctional facility with students, and so there was a great range of other teachers there to meet and collaborate with.
That is so great. And we have this photo here of our GCU esports lounge. And I just want to kind of give the picture of students on computers solving this capture the flag on computers, like not necessarily talking to each other, very much like esports, which we offer at GCU as well. But I think it's so important that students who are into esports are also into cybersecurity. And a lot of our professors say it this way: esports is like the gateway opportunity into cybersecurity. So it's like, great, we want you to play games, we want you to enjoy gaming, because that is a part of technology, and creating games on the back end is not an easy task. So I would love for students to be more interested in that. And I think cybersecurity is a great way to get there. So I appreciate so much your wisdom and being able to talk about Gen Cyber, CyberEd, and how you incorporate it in your everyday teaching, Dan. And gosh, what you do for kids, because I know that you do a lot more than just technology teacher. I also know that you have said growth mindset a couple of times. So before we close out the content part, can you tell us about growth mindset and why that's important for you?
Oh, definitely, especially teaching in my class with seventh, eighth, and ninth graders, and maybe throwing coding or HTML or a skill that they've never seen before. And they might look at me and say, I don't get this. I don't know what to do. And I will turn to them and say, you don't get it yet. You don't know what to do yet. And I say, raise your hand. I'll come around. Turn to a neighbor. Ask them. And that's really fun for them too, because maybe they don't get a normal chance to turn to a neighbor and collaborate like that. But I am see that is awesome to see more and more in education. But it really is that I don't get this yet, and I'm willing to go through this problem solving, troubleshooting, how to fix this situation mindset, because then that's really preparing them for the jobs that don't exist yet, right? I always tell my students, hey, guess what my first job was? It was at working renting VHSs, and they're like, renting VHSs. They're like a Blockbuster. They kind of know, they kind of have this like historical knowledge, and I say, yeah. And so the growth mindset is to be able to tackle any problem that might we don't even know is coming down the line, but preparing them for that. I don't know what to do yet.
I love it. The power of yet. And by the way, adults need that too. As teachers, we need that too. No, I don't know what to do with cyber yet. Hopefully, folks, you have learned a few tips and tricks from Mr. Dan Uttech, teacher at 91st Psalm School. And I certainly hope that you do have the power of yet. If you're not sure where to incorporate cyber education, please reach out to us. We'll have show notes so that you can connect with us and get to be a part of our Gen Cyber Teacher Camp. We're so excited to host it again. It'll be in 2023, but I want y'all to know that we do not do any of this lightly. Our why is to empower, educate, and inspire our community so that they take action to fulfill their purpose and to serve others. And with people like Dan Uttech in the classroom every day, you can see, folks, he's just given up an hour of his prep to just be with us today. We thank you so much for educating other teachers. And we want you to remember that we're here to support you on your journey. We can walk alongside you as educators, and remember that there's more free PD whenever you need it at your fingertips on our YouTube channel. So please subscribe now. And until next time, this has been your Canyon PD's Wednesday webinar. Mr. Dan Uttech, thank you so much for empowering your students to know more about Gen Cyber, cyber education, and all things technology. Until next time, we'll see you soon.